Hey, Hulvey, what's up? Reach Records, Hulvey. Wow. So, first of all, I just want to say, thank you. It's awesome to see young people with such minds geared towards God. And I won't give you all of my testimony; it would be too long. But I'll give you kind of the seasons that were kind of intertwined that led up to now. So, in 2016, I was sentenced to prison. I was working in the field of recovery um, prior to my incarceration. I was trying to help other addicts and alcoholics stay clean with the help of God. And so I later came to relapse, and it led to prison, thank God, versus death, the grave. And and so since day one, I went in and I tried to turn it over to God all the time. I began putting men through the 12 steps, which is ultimately to bring you to have a personal relationship with God. And I started studying the Bible with elders. I started doing Bible studies. There was actually three men on trial for murder in there that were actually preaching the Word of God, which we were in a very special cell block. We're amongst murderers and robbers, and 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 three that were being tried were actually preaching the Word of God. I found that to be amazing. And one of them was who I was studying the Bible with. And so, fast forward a little bit, I got accepted to yet another halfway home to receive recovery again. And the judge denied it. He said, there is nothing else has worked for you, Ryan. Nothing. And I'm sentencing you to prison. So I went to prison, and I was not happy about it. And so I got there, and I probably could have went, you know, any direction. There was gangs that wanted me. There was drugs everywhere. But I chose to do the right thing because, to be truthful, I wanted out of prison early, and my motivation might have been, the desire I had within my flesh to receive a reward from God. I can admit that. Um, but God was working on me. So in prison, I took care of my body very well, and I got really close with God. And, and part of my prison stay, I was mentoring men, walking through the steps with them, talking about my experiences, just giving them that hope, and kind of being that example. And I was known for that. And so I moved into a certain dorm, and the man next to me, he was into the Bible a lot. I would say more than me, and he was into programs within the walls of prison that were God-based programs and involved Jesus. And so me and him became really good friends. We ate together every day, and we spoke a lot about life. And so he said, "You're not going to do all your time." I said, "You're out of your mind. I'm going to do all my time. I mean, there's nothing that says I'm not going to." He said, "No, you're not going to do it all your time. There's a guy over there that could help you." I said, "Okay, where's he at?" So I go over there, and yeah, he helped me. He pointed me towards a piece of paper that I could fill out, and that would recommend me to a therapeutic program within prison. And I filled it out, and it came back granted 3 weeks later from the judge saying, "Yes, if you complete this program, I will consider a modification to your sentence." And I said, "Wow, that door was opened." And I had an appeal in at the time, actually. And I dismissed my appeal because this piece of paper came back. I had that much faith. Like, my faith had increased so much more, in God and the power He had. I had seen it before in my life. I just kind of had went away from it because I was ashamed. I was broken, and I was too proud to turn back to God. Is the truth. And so, um, and let me remind you that I filled out these same forms for other men. Now, I'm not saying that God did not love these men as much as he loved me, because that wouldn't be true. He loves us all. And so they didn't come back granted. So I said, why me? Why me? And so as my time rolled on, God was delivering me men. I mean, troubled men, like, men that couldn't be reached by society and stuff. And I was reaching them, and it was through the workouts, it was through the Bible, it was through the 12 steps. It was God working through me. It was amazing. It was the best feeling I ever felt in my life. And so I just continued. So one day I was, my name was called. Ryan, bag your baggage. You're moving. I said, I ain't going nowhere. Where am I going? And, the guy next to me, my buddy, he says, pack your stuff, stupid. You're going to the recovery dorm, and you're going to be going home soon. So get up, pack your stuff, give me a hug. God bless you. You're out of here. That's your ticket home. I said, no, I'm going to go check. And it was. And he helped me move, and I went into this dorm. And, before in the past, I was kind of a know-it-all and let my pride get in the way of my recovery and my relationship with God. And this time around, I was like, I'm not going to open my mouth. I'm not going to let people around me know that I have this knowledge of recovery. And so I kept my mouth shut for a long time. And then I just felt this overwhelming feeling like Ryan, you have to share. You have to share. Why is it in you? Why is your cup overflowing and spilling out, and you're not doing anything with it? And so I said, enough is enough. And I finally opened my mouth, and people were like, wow, where has that been? And so I try to keep humility about myself. And I go on, and I got released from prison 3.5, 4 years early. And I come home on July 20th, 2020. In less than 40 days or 45 days, released from prison, I connect with a buddy of mine, and he hooks me up with a job at a brand new recovery center that hadn't even been opened yet. So I had about 30, 40 days to wait for it to be opened, but I got a job. And it was, somewhat of my dream job. I had an ultimate goal in mind later down the road for a recovery center, but this was a stepping stone and a chance to do God's will. And so I took it, and it was a blessing. Everything was going well. And so I had that time in between there of just waiting and excited about the new job. And, I got high again. And I don't think any addict can really explain why. They can give you a list of excuses. They can try to justify it. But, it just goes back to that obsession. Sin, fully conceived, gives birth to death. And so, that thought arose that, hey, you can safely use, you got this job coming, maybe nobody will know, and it makes you feel good anyway. Why not do it? And so I picked up again, and it took me lower than I've ever been. Now, I didn't wind up in prison again, but emotionally, spiritually, physically, it took me lower than I've ever been before in my life. So I'm about a couple of weeks into my addiction, and I'm going really hard, and I can't stop. And so I had to admit to my boss that I had relapsed and that I couldn't work here anymore. And it would hurt other people's recovery if I came to work high constantly. So I made a decision to tell him myself. And a couple of weeks after, we received the phone call about 8:30 p.m. on a Friday, mid-October, that my nephew, who was like my son, he was a big-time football player in high school, and I missed most of that because I was in prison. And, he had the whole world in front of him. And we got the call that he was shot and killed and murdered just prior to a Georgia-Alabama football game. One of his friends he went to high school with played for one of those teams, and he was invited and received tickets to go down there and watch him play. Now, a couple of weeks before that, my first time meeting up with him out of prison, we got to do a big old fancy prison workout, and we were both kind of out of shape. And but we had fun, and I had a lot of plans with my nephew just to do those kinds of things and spend time with him, give him my experiences, try to give him direction because he never had a man in his life that was consistent other than me, and I was in and out of my addiction. And so he calls me one day, and he's like, I think he texted me. Um, he said, Uncle Ryan, man, I think I'm gonna drop out of school. I found a way to get rich fast. I said, really? So I didn't ask him about the details. I just kind of tried to redirect his thoughts. And I said, do you think that's God's will for your life? And he was like, no. I said, I think you should stay in school and then see what doors God opens up for you. I said, money doesn't buy happiness, as we all know. And so, you know, when we received that phone call that he was, shot, we didn't know he was later going to pass. So, we'll back up a little bit. A couple weeks after this conversation, I noticed on Facebook he's posting things about Jesus, and so I kind of sent him a message. I seen your post, and your head's in the right direction now, and I'm proud of you. And so that was the last set of messages we sent each other, and then we received a phone call that he was shot, and then hours later we received the phone call that he had died at the hospital. And he was a good kid. He was defending his fraternity brothers on the strip there the night before the football game, and this young kid as well, this young kid was carrying a gun. They got into it. He pulled the gun on him and shot and killed him. And my family just was torn apart by it. And I'm not trying to be selfish, but this is my perspective and my view and my story of it. I couldn't process it. I could not accept that he was dead. I thought that things were being made up. I was on methamphetamines, so that drug grabs a hold of you, and I thought all kinds of crazy things, and I was blaming my family for things, and I was just torn up, and I couldn't accept it, and so I wasn't invited to the funeral, and that fed into the enemy's attack on me. It just, my mind was like, well, why didn't they invite me? Is the things I'm thinking true? And so I struggled, and I couldn't come out of it until weeks ago. And I'm finally sober. I think I got 14 to 18 days clean. And I began going to church again, and when I get the means and transportation, I'll be, I'm gonna be involved in the church again. I think it might be one of my callings, to help people. And I'm actually sure of it. I don't know which avenue God's going to pull me into, or which area. And so, I've watched my sister she's not herself. She lost her son. And, I hear about times where she's just stuck in the shower. And she's stuck in that thought that she lost her son. And, throughout the years when I was too proud to talk to God, open His Word, pray, where I felt too ashamed, I listened to Christian hip hop, and even though I may have been too proud for those things that I mentioned, Christian hip hop was there, and thank God for it at times, because the message of God came through, my speaker, and talked to me, even when I wouldn't go directly to the source. And so I've turned a lot of my nieces and nephews onto it. Skylar was one of them, my nephew that passed. I don't know if he listened to it all the time, but he enjoyed some songs. And so I send those things to my sister a lot. And I don't know if she hears it, but I send it. And thank you guys, for making your music. If you touch one person, that touches one person, that touches one person, that touches thousands. You know, you never know when you're doing that. You never know when a testimony is going to touch thousands. My testimony or his testimony might touch that one person that's able to reach masses. So, you know, we're still going through it as a family. We're not as close as we've been. We're probably further apart than we've ever been. And, you know, I just ask for prayers out there and for any young people that are at that intersection in their life where, you know, they might choose drugs to cope with, or they might choose violence instead of peace, and all these things. You know, it's better to get it early. I'm proud of you, Hulvey, for getting this thing early on in life. You know, don't ever stray from it. You know, it's the way. I got a tattoo on the back of my neck in prison, my first prison tattoo. It says the way. And, you know, it's John 14:6, I think. John 14:6. And Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And that's true. You know, I've tried it every other way to recover, to deal with things that I'm going with in my life. And the only power, the only thing that has that power to fill that void or to heal me is God, Jesus Christ. He has that power. And no human has that power. They can't recover for you. They can't make the decision to turn to God for you. You have to find it within yourself. They can pray for you. But it's ultimately up to you, youngsters, to make that decision for yourself. You know, do I want to try it all these different ways when I can just try God? And God will provide for you and fulfill and give you that unconditional love that you're searching for through all of these worldly things, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, relationships, money, clothing, fancy cars. You know, these things are not going to fill that emptiness that you feel inside. So, you know, I ask again for you guys' prayers for my sister and the kids. And, you know, they lost their brother. They lost a son. I lost a nephew. My mother lost a grandson. And it was just through senseless acts. But he's in a better place now. And, you know, that's my story. And again, I want to thank you, Hulvey. You know, I hope you get thousands and thousands of testimonies. All right? Love you, dude. Take care. Keep making that nice music. Bye.